Anybody with that link can watch, no, without.
Yeah, without being in group or anything.
Yeah, that will be great.
Okay. Okay. So okay, sir. So I'll fix speaker in. Okay.
Okay, WhatsApp group, you have not shared the link.
Not yet.
Okay.
So I have the link with me.
Okay, you can share with me. Can you share that link with me?
Yeah, I can. But
Yeah,
I think you can share only when you start.
yeah, that's right. Hmm.
So I'm sending you the link.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the link. So should we start?
Yes, yes, yes.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Ortho TV Trauma webinar. And we have with us today Dr. Shivashankar, and he has already done a couple of webinars with us, which are very, very popular. And today he's going to speak on how to get good results with PFN and predictors of successful outcome. I welcome you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shivashankar. Friends, I'll be talking about the proximal femur nail again. This was the third time I'm talking. Earlier, I had given webinar on common mistakes and how to avoid, and the Z effects and how to get good results without Z effect in the earlier two seminars. In continuation of the same, I'll be talking today about how to get good results with PFN and to talk about predictors of a successful outcome after having done a PFN. Exactly 1 month back, on 18th of December, I was in Indore to install the new office bearers. Dr. Pradeep Chaudhary took over as the president of the Association of Indore Orthopedic Association from Dr. Anil Mahajan, and I was the installing officer, and also I gave the silver jubilee oration of Indore Orthopedic Association on that day. I have shared this picture with many of you, and the topic I had selected for this oration was how to get good results with PFN and what are the predictors of successful outcome. When I shared this picture of the oration and also the topic with many of my friends, everybody asked me to share the presentation, and here is an attempt to share this presentation in this webinar. Thanks to Ortho TV for these useful seminars of day-to-day importance. Friends, before I start the topic, I once again say that the editor of Ortho TV, Dr. Ashok Sham, will be available to ask questions on your behalf at the end of this my talk. You can WhatsApp him your query on 9833110366. How to get good results with PFN? These are some 10 commandments I'll be sharing. The first and the foremost one is good reduction. It is the most important thing when you do any surgery on the hip. Second foremost important is avoiding varus. Third is to avoid superior screw longer in size. Then fourth one is you should avoid shorter cervical screw. That means TAD should be less and the tip of the screw should be subchondrally placed. Then the next one is there should not be any medial void, or if there is void, you compensate that void. That I will talk in due course of my talk. Sixth one is one should try to avoid static locking or no dynamization possible, like in a situation where the nail is stuck or statically locked. All nailing requires some amount of dynamization, which can be given by the dynamic hole of the nail. So either you should do dynamization in time, or you should be in a position to have the nail subside little during the course of healing. For the information of Dr. Ashok Sham, I have muted my sound because there is some echo coming to me. So if you want anything, you can call me on my mobile.
Okay, sir.
Then avoid screw which is longer outside. The next one is avoid not compacting the fracture. All segmented fracture, though we are using a sliding screw mechanism, they do require some amount of compression, which can be done with this system. Then try to avoid PFN in a severely osteoporotic case where the screw will not have much purchase. It's better to replace them rather than trying to do a osteosynthesis in those cases. And the last one is newer implants are not always better than the earlier ones. So it's not necessary that all the newer available things are better than earlier one. Implant is just a tool to fix the fracture. The first and foremost important thing is the reduction, which I'll be talking in great length, and the other things I'll be passing through. Many of the slides are these ideas. I already talked in my earlier two webinars, but this is compilation for today's webinar again. As I said earlier, good reduction is the most important thing. The good anteromedial support is required for all the fractures to unite. The contact of the fragment at the fracture site is very, very important. There should not be any displacement or translation. This slide I taken from 1984 journal by Dr. Jewett, where he talks about the posteromedial combination for the instability of the intertrochanteric fracture, and the surface implant is going to fail if this posteromedial combination is not addressed. What I am talking, or my hypothesis is, it's the anteromedial cortex rather than the posteromedial fragment which cause the instability. The reason is we can talk about those things which we know or which we can see. Here is an X-ray of the lateral view of a hip. You can see the anterior cortex, but the comminuted posterior cortex, which is more osteoporotic, we can hardly see. So there is no point in talking about posterior comminution in these fractures, which we cannot see on our X-ray or CM picture. So it's better to reduce anteriorly, and automatically when the anterior reduction happens, the posterior one also gets reduced automatically. So the anterior cortex is like the medial tibial condyle, where it splits because the bone is thick and strong, it splits. Whereas the posterior cortex is like the lateral tibial condyle, where when the compression happens, it gets depressed or it becomes powdery or it becomes too many pieces. So anterior cortex can be compared as a strong bone splitting into few pieces, like the face of jigsaw with few pieces you can see, and the posterior cortex can be compared with multiple or hundreds of pieces like the world map you can see. So putting the face is much more easier in the jigsaw puzzle, and it takes hardly few minutes when compared to larger number of pieces in the world map. Once you align the face, automatically the world map which is behind the face also gets aligned. It's like the first button of the shirt. If it is aligned properly, the last button also will get aligned properly. If the first button is not aligned correctly, as you can see in this picture, then automatically the last button will also not get aligned. So the first button we can compare to the anterior cortex, and the last button we can compare it to the posterior cortex. So always put the anterior cortex on the first button properly, then everything will fall back in position. Even experts failed some time. Here is a lateral picture. You can see, though the implant is properly positioned, there is so much of translation, and you can see the fracture line is oblique and there are shearing forces going on. The contact with the neck with the shaft is hardly there is anything. So this fracture is going to give trouble. Though in AP it might be looking beautiful. So the most important thing is getting 100% reduction of the neck. At least try to get 100%. If it is not possible, at least try to aim near that. Even loss of 25% reduction causes loss of 50%, because once the neck should be aligned like this properly, I'll re-show this picture. 100% overlapping should be there at the fracture side. If anteriorly 25% reduction is lost, posteriorly another 25% reduction will be lost. There is hardly any place. The red area is the contact of the fracture side. The area of contact will be less, and that will be also occupied by our metal, that is the implant or the next screw. So there is hardly any place for the bone to unite. That's why reduction is the most important thing. There are very simple reduction tools like Steelman pin on a T handle, which I normally use almost 90% of my cases, except some few undisplaced fracture. I use it very regularly. Here is an example of severely displaced fracture neck femur. You can say that it is due to the sagging of the shaft, but friends, the muscle attachment to the distal fragments are less. So what is happening here is the neck which is pulled by the attachment of the muscles, especially the iliopsoas if the lesser trochanter is attached. So we have to correct the part which is deformed. Just by lifting the shaft, you may not be able to get the correct antivation of the neck. So what we require is pushing the neck also down in this fashion with the help of the Steelman pin, so that your neck can be aligned properly. Once the neck shaft are aligned properly, then you can pick that with a K-wire. Then you can make the entry from the piriformis fossa or from the tip of the trochanter, wherever you like, to make the track for the nail. So this is very, very important. Here is another example where you can see that the guide wire was very closely placed in lateral picture. By pushing the neck down with the Steelman pin, as you can see in this picture, the guide wire could be aligned into the center of the neck, and subsequently the nailing could be carried out without any problem. Here is an example where the lesser trochanter is attached to the proximal fragment. This is very difficult to reduce, and there are too much of forces acting on the proximal fragment, and it is more common that this fragment goes in flexion like this, and this fragment requires to be pushed down. Just by lifting the shaft, we will not be getting proper alignment. So it requires to be pushed down with the Steelman pin, aligned with the shaft. You can lift the shaft also additionally, that is different. But most important thing is the proximal fragment with the lesser trochanter which is attached, that is deformed. So you have to correct the deformed fragment. Next one is, this is how we get the reduction. Dr. Shyam, you are calling me?
No, I'm not.
Hello? Ashok?
No, sir.
No, because there was some call. I'll switch it off.
Okay.
Sorry for the interruption. Here is another similar example. You can see the neck which is flexed, that has been depressed with the help of a spatula. The basic cervical fractures require a broader surface area to press it properly, because there is some rotational element also involved in this fragment. Just by Steelman pin, you may not be able to align it properly. Sometimes it's better to use a Homan's spatula like this and align it. So normally a fracture like this with a displace in lateral view, what I normally do is pass a K-wire into the lateral fragment or the outer fragment, not across the fracture site. Keep this ready. Then with the Steenman pin, I enter into the fracture site, which is passed from anterolateral aspect. Then once the alignment is obtained, the anterior cortex with the shaft is obtained, immediately the assistant will drive the K-wire which was kept ready. So wherever the K-wire goes, I pass it and fix the fracture with anterior cortex well aligned. You can see in this fracture, the posterior cortex is so comminuted and it is so osteoporotic, you can not see the posterior cortex also in this case. So it's very difficult to align the posterior cortex. So I am aligning the anterior cortex. Once this K-wire is fixed, if it is coming in the way of my subsequent screw, whether I am doing DHS or PFN, if it is coming in my subsequent screw, what I do is I additionally insert few more K-wires anteriorly and withdraw the first one which was fixing the fractures. So now these K-wires give me direction of the shaft also. It gives me direction of the neck shaft angle also. So this acts as a guide for me to keep the jig parallel to these K-wires so that subsequently I can pass the neck screw parallel to these K-wires. Because I have already fixed these two fractures with two K-wires which are about a centimeter away, I can adapt the fracture without the worry of the fracture going to varus. So you can see that so much of adduction is possible, and because of the adduction, passing the nail is very, very easy. The pelvis will not come in the way of my passing the nail. It is very easy to operate, and I can take the entry medial to the tip of the trochanter or even from the piriformis fossa in this position. Almost about 60 degree of adduction is possible in these cases after fixing the fractures. And this is the final X-ray in the same patient. Here is a video which is in a very elderly lady of 75-76 years. This lady had a comminuted intertrochanteric fracture. She came to me almost after a week after the initial fall. The posterior cortex was practically missing. As you can see on the right top picture, there is hardly any cortex you can see. What I am doing is passing a K-wire. Because the window is from the exactly from the side, it looks that is being passed at 90 degrees to the body, but it is at about 135 degrees actually being passed, as you can see in the CR picture. Then you can see that I am passing a Steenman pin and aligning the neck properly, and with one hand I am holding the reductor. Once the neck is aligned, the anterior cortex is aligned, I am drilling the K-wire into the head and neck. So I am just manipulating with the CM in that position. I am going as anterior as possible. As you can see that the K-wire has been passed, grazing the anterior cortex of the neck from inside head and neck. Once I pass the first K-wire with a gap of with a span of another 1 centimeter, I pass another K-wire again parallel to this in the same fashion with this anterior. Once both these two K-wires are passed, as you see the both in the picture, then I will be adducting the neck. So this adduction of the neck at this stage helps me in passing the nail easily from the trochanteric end, and also it helps in avoiding the varus. This is one of the old case. Sometime in 2009, I have operated. You can see from the CM pictures. This is a 15 days old patient where the neck was almost hinged with the shaft, and I tried to reduce this fracture by many manipulations, but I couldn't get it. And finally, what I did, see, I initially tried to lift the thigh with the towel, but the neck shaft angle was not becoming perfect. It was still getting angulated. Angle was happening. So I passed the Steenman first in this fashion to the back side. I disengage the fragment. I push the shaft out because it was a 15 days old fracture. I disengage the fragment. Then the towel, you can see the assistant lifted the thigh of the shaft. Then I fixed the fracture immediately in this fashion. Once the fracture was doing the surgery was a cake smoke. You can see the AP and lateral picture. In the lateral picture, you can see both the KYs which are being asked to fix the fracture, very anteriorly placed. And see the reduction, anterior cortex is very well aligned. There is neck shaft angle also looks okay, and there is no retroversion which was happening earlier due to hinging. This is the immediate, rather it is on-table final post CM pictures where the Shankar's leg has been maintained as well as the anterior cortex has been maintained. This is at about 10 weeks time when the patient came for follow-up, the patient was walking comfortably. Even a crack fracture, I try to fix the fracture. The reason is a crack fracture like this, if I insert the 15 or 16 millimeter centering on, the fracture gets opened up superiorly. They widen the proximal fragment, and that will cause lateralization of the shaft, and the patient will not have a proper gait even if the fracture unites correctly. So to avoid that, even crack fractures, I always fix with 2 KYs before I do any further procedure on them. Here I have used a PFN and I have fixed the fracture in this fashion. Friends, this is an article from Korea in the Archives of Orthopedics Trauma Surgery in 2016, where they talk about provisional pin fixation, an efficient alternative to manual maintenance of reduction in nailing of intertrochanteric fractures. I have already shown the pictures of 2007, 2008, 2009, where I have used the technique, but recently this has been published as an alternative in unstable fractures. Here you can see the surgeon opens the fractures and reduces and fixes with a Steinman pin or a thick K-wire. These are the zoomed picture of the same, where you can see a similar technique. Whatever I have been talking all these years has been used by these surgeons. Really, it's a very useful technique. Here is an X-ray of 2007. You can see 2007, I have used this technique. Another X-ray of 2008, where a similar technique of fixing the fracture with KYs has been used. This is about the anterior reduction. Second part is the medial reduction. Medial reduction is also very, very important. I never accept the beak of the proximal fragment going into the medullary canal. That always indicates that the fracture is in varus. So with the intramedullary implant, the beak should never be inside. What I did, I used a bone hook, pulled out the trochanter from the teeth, reduced the medial contact to an anatomical alignment, and the Shankar's blade was very well achieved. I normally try to get a valgus reduction rather than anatomical reduction. So in this case of 2007, you can see the neck or the beak of the neck is much more medial than the shaft. There is a gap of almost 5 millimeters between them, but there is a neck shaft angle or the valgus angle, which is always very, very useful for the fracture to unite. In the same case which I have shown earlier, this is immediate post-op X-ray, and subsequently at about 4 months time, the beautiful consolidation around the implant you can see in such a badly comminuted fracture. If the medial fragment is very high, especially involving the lesser trochanter, and a long fragment is present, it's better to fix them. Open, wire it properly and fix them. As you can see in these cases, again a large medial butterfly fragment, it's better to fix them. Medial reduction is also very, very important because the weight bearing axis passes through that part of the bone, and if there is a gap, any implant is going to fail. Though intramedullary implant requires longer duration of time to fail, but the gap is not accepted in the medial part. Friends, reduction is the most important factor, as I said, and I have talked. If you cannot get close reduction, there is no harm in opening and putting back the fragments and fixing them with either screws or wires, as in these cases. Here is another example where a long oblique fracture with the tip going almost up to the lesser trochanter. I use the cerclage wire passer, reduce the fragment by a small incision with a encerclage wiring, and this is the end result. You can see that the medial part of the weight bearing axis has been beautifully restored back. That is the reason why I have used the technique. You can see with a small incision without disturbing the hematoma, it can be done with a very small incision using these instruments. There are many other instruments like ball-tipped guide wire, ball-tipped spike, then reduction clamps, collinear clamps, all are available. With the use of this, our reduction maneuvers are becoming with small keyhole incisions. The next point is avoid superior screw which is longer and also avoid shorter cervical screw. As both of them are similar, I am taking these two, second and third point simultaneously. When you do a PFN, the cervical screw and the derotating screw should be at the same horizontal level. And normally, if you use a 135-degree nail, all of them, the nail tip and the screw, all of them will remain at the same horizontal level as in the line you can see. And the reason is they should be at the same horizontal level because the hip is loaded eccentrically. Both the screws should take the load simultaneously. That's why they should be at the same horizontal level. The inferior screw should be subchondrally placed and the tip apex distance like a DHS should be less than 25 millimeter both in EP and lateral picture. But friends, we measure the tip apex distance from the fovea centralis. But as you can see, in a two screw system like PFN, our most important screw will be inferior. The cervical screw is inferior. The distance from the fovea centralis becomes long. Or if you measure the TAD in this case, it will be measured much more than what it is actually. Hence, we should not measure the tip apex distance for a screw which is inferiorly placed from the fovea centralis, but it is better to measure from the subchondral bone. It should be less than 10 millimeter away from the subchondral bone and it should have a good purchase in the subchondral bone. That's why when I measure the tip apex distance, when I do a PFN, I always measure it from the subchondral bone and not from the fovea centralis as it is universally accepted. So you measure when you do a PFN the subchondral distance, and this can be considered as your tip apex distance in both AP and lateral. Both of them put together, they should not be more than 25 millimeter. Length of the screw is also very, very important. On the left, you can see three X-rays with different length of the screw. Inferior one is very long, superior one is just crossing the nail. Superior one is long and inferior one is short. Both of them at the same, the tip at the same level. All of them are wrong. What is important is both of them should be at the same horizontal level. Once the hip is loaded eccentrically, the tip of both the screws should take the load simultaneously and they should slide uniformly through the nail out. That is very, very important. This is a very good article from Henschel in the Journal of Surgery and Research. It's a 2016 article where they have studied different screw lengths. In vitro study, it's on a bone model they have studied. The superior screw longer, superior screw shorter, inferior screw longer, inferior screw shorter, both of them longer, both of them shorter, all various options they have studied. And on the left picture, you can see the end result, the red dots and the blue dots, everything, they give where the maximum stress is happening in those cases. So that is what the study has been done. For us to understand easily, I normally take as a subchondral inferior screw as 90 millimeter and a derotating screw at the same level as 75 millimeter. So that is the figure I have given on the right down corner. Here is the first example on the left down. You can see both the screws are at the same horizontal level. And when both the tip of the screws are same horizontal level, the best results of sliding could be achieved. There are no jamming of the screw and there was no Z effect. There was no screw backing out and both the screws had a uniform stress for sliding. That's the most important thing. Second one is the top left, you can see where the superior screw is longer than the neck screw. The neck screw is of proper size. That is 90 millimeter neck screw has been used, but instead of 75 millimeter neck screw, a 90 millimeter neck screw, a longer neck screw has been used. What happens in this case? The neck screw, the superior one is above the horizontal line. The brunt of the load when the hip is loaded is taken by the superior screw, and the superior screw is also smaller in size. The core diameter of this screw is also very small. That's why many a time they break at the junction of threaded and non-threaded portion. And this longer screw, when it takes the brunt of the load, jamming of the screw happens, especially in the nail. So that will lead to brunt of the load being taken from the tip of the screw, and screw breakage is the commonest factor they have observed in the study. Third one is inferior screw shorter and superior screw longer. That's why I use that terminology 75 millimeter inferior screw and 90 millimeter superior screw. So inferior screw is shorter by 15 millimeter and superior screw is also longer by 15 millimeter. In this case, what happens is there will be total jamming of the superior screw, and superior screw will not slide back. Instead of that, when the patient is loading, it keeps on moving inside. And since the inferior screw is not having a good purchase in the subchondral bone, it keeps on sliding out easily, leading to Z effect or the Z effect. So that is the reason why Z effect is very, very common if you use a superior screw which is longer and inferior screw which is not having a good purchase in the subchondral bone. This is the next study they have done. And the last part, what I'm showing, they are also studied in different other aspects also, but these are four important ones I'm only describing. Here, superior screw is also shorter and inferior screw is also shorter. Both of them they have used short, and in that situation, both the screw slides out uniformly and the fracture will go into varus in due course of time because of lack of fixation in the subchondral bone. This article also concludes that if inferior screw is longer, that is inferior screw is placed subchondrally, smooth sliding happens, uniform stress at the screw nail junction, both for the superior as well as inferior will happen. It's not only just the inferior screw, but if the superior screw is also proper size, uniform stress at the nail screw junction will happen. And also, if the inferior screw is longer or subchondrally placed, it has got the least varus malformation. It has got a resistance effect against varus deformation force, especially if the lesser trochanter is broken or there is small void medially. In such cases, it's always better to put a longer subchondrally placed inferior of the cervical screw. This is an ideal situation where the inferior screw is subchondrally placed and the superior screw at the same horizontal level. The lateral sliding was the largest if the inferior screw had the shortest length. That means it is not having a subchondral purchase. That's why it easily cuts out from the neck and starts sliding out. Here is a situation where everything is normal. Both the screws are at the same horizontal level. When the hip is loaded in this fashion. So what happens is both of screws simultaneously slide out because the inferior screw is subchondrally placed and the superior screw is also at the same horizontal level to take the load simultaneously. By chance, if the inferior screw is shorter, in this situation, the superior screw takes the brunt of the load. So what happens when the superior screw takes the brunt of the load? There will be jamming of the screw within the nail. The sliding mechanism for the superior screw will get jammed. So it prevents the screw to slide out. When the hip is loaded, when the screw cannot slide out superiorly, the forces are getting converted. Instead of passing along the screws, it will start passing as a varus force or a deforming force. This deforming forces causes the inferior screw, which is not having a good purchase, to slide out easily, and because of the jamming in the nail, inferior screw go inside into the head and neck, causing the Z effect. So that is the reason why we should avoid using a shorter cervical screw. Even though if you feel the fixation is good, try to fix the screw as subchondrally as possible. If there is void medially, then this will get exaggerated much more. Because of the void, there is a tendency to head and neck to go into varus that will also add to this deforming force, and the failure of the implant will happen very quickly. So one should try to avoid varus and one should try to pass the screws which are proper in length. The fourth point is avoid varus. Friends, this is another recent article from 2015 journal, again from the archives of orthopedic trauma surgery. by Chang, Zhang, and Lee. The topic is fracture reduction with positive medial cortical support, a key element in stability of reconstruction of unstable perotrochanteric hip fractures. This is a very new terminology which has come recently in our orthopedic practice. The contact from the head and neck with the shaft can be classified into negative, neutral, or positive. This is the classification of the support. What is a negative medial cortical support? Here you can see the beak of the head and neck is within the medullary canal. This is called as negative medial cortical support. Then here you can see the beak of the neck is sitting on the shaft. So it's a neutral cortical support. The third thing is positive cortical support. Here you can see the beak is medially placed than the shaft and there is a valgus of the head and neck. This is a positive medial cortical support. So this article says that it's better to get either neutral medial cortical support or a positive medial cortical support. Here you can see a negative medial cortical support in a clinical situation. Here it's a neutral medial cortical support, whereas here it's a positive medial cortical support with a valgus. So if the left one, the negative one, will always have problem. The patient will not be able to walk even if the fracture unites, or many a time the head and neck goes in further varus and superiorly the screws will cut through. So always try to achieve either neutral cortical support or positive cortical support. I have been talking about positive cortical support. I try to achieve positive cortical support even though there is some medial void. I accept the medial void because of this positive cortical support, but I try to reduce the fractures in valgus as much as possible. As I said earlier, the negative cortical support in these two cases has given problem in subsequently in this patient. Here is the example which I repeatedly show similar x-rays or the same x-ray. The reason is I can drive home a point by using the same x-rays multiple times. Again, you can see this beak which is going inside. I pulled it out to get a neutral cortical support and the fracture united. Once the implant was put properly, the anatomical neck shaft angle was maintained, the fracture unites without any problem. Even in neutral cortical support, you can open up superiorly the fracture and cause the head and neck to go into varus. That's not good. Or neutral can be anatomically neutral. There's no gap either at the beak or at the superior fracture side. So this is also it's okay, but try to achieve mild valgus. Though the beak is touching the medial part, but the head and neck are in valgus. You should try to achieve valgus, as valgus is always better with these intramedullary implants. That's the best position one can get. The same picture you can see the negative cortical support. By pulling that with a hook, I have obtained it back into neutral cortical support and the fracture united, consolidated beautifully. This is another X-ray of 2007 where this patient after 2 weeks she had come, where you can see the positive medial cortical support with valgus, and subsequently this is the positive medial cortical support. In subsequently you can see beautiful consolidation of the fracture at about 14 months time when the patient had come. This is on the left now in the immediate postoperative X-ray in the same patient. Next point is avoid medial void, and if you cannot avoid medial void, compensate with valgus. So this is the next point I am taking. Don't accept a void medially like this. Put them back in position by putting few screws or wires, as I said earlier. Another X-ray where a larger medial fragment could be put back with wiring. Another very large medial fragment, it's better to put them back in position. Here is an example which I demonstrated live at Sanjeti Hospital last year in the Pune trauma course, where you can see the X-ray. There is medially also there is a problem. The lesser trochanter is broken. Laterally also there is a void. The lateral wall is also broken. So this is the lateral wall, it is broken, and this is the medial wall which is broken. What I did to compensate for the medial void, what I have done is I have used a valgus reduction. You can see that my head and neck is in severe valgus compared with the opposite side, and also to compensate for the lateral void, I have used the head of this screw or the head of the neck screw, and I have fixed it against the nail. You can see that the head of the screw is abutting against the nail. Either you can use a trochanteric buttress plate or any other plate outside, or even you can use the nail itself as a trochanteric buttress plate. The screw of the head and neck or the cervical screw head is touching the nail, and this is compensating for the lateral void, and I have got a good valgus reduction that will compensate for the medial lesser trochanter fracture. This is the immediate postoperative X-ray just after 4 weeks. This is X-ray after just after 4 weeks. You can see that the fracture has united beautifully with good consolidation of the bone. So this is what you can compensate. If you cannot avoid medial gap either by wiring, or if you don't want to do any open reduction, then you can compensate by getting extra valgus of 5 to 10 degrees in those cases. Next one is avoid static locking or no dynamization possible situation. Either the static locking or it happens in stuck nail. Friends, I have seen Dr. Subhash Haldar, the person who innovated the gamma nail or the Halifax nail to begin with, which became gamma nail subsequently. He never does the distal locking in a short gamma nail. He only does the distal locking in one long gamma nails only, and he never does in a short gamma nail. He says that a nail always requires some subsidence for it to unite. So I always advocate the usage of a dynamic nail. Even if I do the distal locking, it's always dynamic. But here is an example of a static locking done, which in subsequent time went into Z effect. Though the surgeon tried to do dynamization due course of time, but that was too late at that time, and it went into Z effect. Another case, again a varus reduction is there. The nail has been shoved through the fracture site. There is no proper entry made for the nail. You can see that a static locking has been done in this case, and the Z effect has happened in this case also. Normally, about 90 to 95% of the cases, whether you do static locking or dynamic locking, it unites without any problem. I am talking about the 5% of the cases which require dynamization. In those cases, if you don't do dynamization in time, or if the patient doesn't come in time for proper dynamization, this complication happens. That's why it's better to do dynamic locking. Here is an example of a stuck nail. A thick nail has been used. You can see the nail is very snugly fitting in both the pictures, and there is a linear crack at the tip of the nail because the surgeon has caused a fracture, and this is due to a thick nail which is being passed without proper reaming, and this has resulted at the end with broken screws in the head and neck, and subsequently head and neck going into venous. So these are the problems if you do a static locking. So always try to do a dynamic locking. I have never done a static locking, and I am not repenting. Though I don't have a literature to prove it, because everybody does blindly static locking and they are getting good results in 95% of the cases, and we all read the literature. But friends, you start to try to do only dynamic locking, your results will be much more better than with static locking. So this is the end result of the same patient. So avoid static locking or do dynamization in time, or avoid stuck nail. Next one is avoid screw which is longer outside. The screw which is next screw should be shorter, or it should be touching the lateral cortex. Here is an example, immediate postoperative X-ray where the neck screws, both the screws were longer. The reason here is the surgeon has not released the traction on table. He has done the screw, though the screw heads were touching the lateral cortex on table. Once the traction was released, you can see that the fracture has collapsed and the screw heads are already backing out. When the screw heads are already backing out, they have got a tendency to rock in and out. One of the screw can go in and another can come out, or both of them can go in and come out. Because these fractures are in osteoporotic elderly patients, the fixation of the screw becomes poor gradually, and both the screws might come out, or the Z effect may happen if the screw is outside more like this. In this case, what happened? Let's see. Because of the toggling of the screw, subsequently, this patient landed in Z effect. So many a time, both the screws walks out if the screws are outside or the traction is not released on table. So try to release the traction before you compact the screw on table. Next is avoid not compacting the fracture. Means you should do proper compression of the fracture. Here is an example. On table, fracture has been fixed, and at 3 months you can see the heads of the screw which are not slid back even after the fracture is united, because whatever the fracture was begging, that much amount of compression I have given on table. That's why there is no subsequent collapse at the fracture site, and the screw heads are still touching the lateral cortex without coming out. You can see the zoom picture of the same at 3 months. This is the follow-up. Another thing is, once you do a proper reduction, if the neck shaft angle is good, then if you draw a line vertically from the outermost part of the iliac crest, they just graze through the outer part of the trochanter. On right and as well as the left, you can see that this line passes through the trochanter or just grazes tangentially the trochanter. If there is a varus or if there is lateralization of the shaft, you can see the trochanter lying outside this area. So this is what we are achieving. Try to achieve 100% natural head neck angle as well as getting the abductor mechanism properly. If this line is properly grazing the outer cortex, that means you have done a proper surgery. So this is also very important. How to compress? I have already passed on the derotator. I have released the traction at the fixation, and now I am alternatively compressing the fixation screw as well as the cervical screw. As this is a PFN or a two-screw system I am using, I am alternatively compressing till I am satisfied. So till I am satisfied, I am trying to compress. Once I am satisfied with the amount of compression achieved, I will stop this. So this is the advantage of a PFN. You can compress as much as you want. If you want 5 millimeter, you can compress. If you want 6 millimeter, you can compress. If you want 10 millimeter, you can compress. Till the time you feel that the fracture is well compressed, compression. So this is also very, very important, because the screws are properly compressed and the heads of the screws are abutting against the lateral cortex. They will prevent rocking of the screw within the head and neck and subsequent loss of fixation. The next one is avoid PFN in severe osteoporotic patients. It's better to replacing them. Here is an elderly lady with severe osteoporosis with multiple comorbid condition where a PFN A2 was used because of the osteoporosis, but as you can see, it has walked out and superiorly it has cut through. It would have been prudent to use a replacement in this bad case. Another example, already one side PFN has been done, the patient came with fracture on the other side, this 80-year person, again a osteosynthesis was attempted with a PFN A2, again you can see the end result is not as expected. Another case, patient coming late, again the surgeon trying to fix them with a implant, trying to do osteosynthesis. This is not an ideal case for osteosynthesis with so much of overriding, loss of so much of comminution, and with such a bad osteoporotic, it would have been better to replace them initially itself. So try to analyze the patient, analyze the condition, morbidities, and try to do the surgery which suits the patient best. The last and most important thing, newer implants are not always better than the earlier ones. Friends, my views on the newer IM intramedullary hip implants, you have to take with this a pinch of salt, because what I may be talking is again not written anywhere in the literature. It's all my personal feeling. So you have to take or leave it at this stage. It's a common belief that anything newer is always better. But as of today, I still feel that PFN is the best. Rather, it's the gold standard among the intramedullary nails for the hip. There are so many newer implants which have come in the market subsequently. PFN-A2, Trigen nail, then Halifax nail, then ZNN. So many things, newer implants are available in the market. When compared to all of them, I still feel that PFN is the best implant available for hip fracture as of today. Why? I will tell. Friends, PFN is a two-screw system. So better purchase in the head, stronger forces are required to cut two screws. Then compared to a single screw, two screws requires two surfaces have to cut through within the bone. So more forces are required. Then controlled compression is possible. As you can see, like a DHS, the screws of the head and neck screws and the cervical screw and the derotational screw can pass back within the nail, and controlled compression is possible when the fracture unites. Intramedullary implant with single screw and double screw. This is one of the best articles which I have come across. This is from the Indian Journal of Orthopedics in May-June 2014 by Professor Amit Rastogi of Banaras Hindu University. He is the head of the department there, where they tried a two-screw system like a PFN against a one-screw system like a gamma nail. What they did was they created a 1 centimeter graft medially and they fixed these bone models with either PFN or with gamma nail, and they repeatedly subjected this into force on the head using a machine in IIT BHU, and they mimic the hip being loaded within the body, and this repeated action were carried out for 50,000 cycles. Amongst the 10 PFN, 9 of them sustained 50,000 cycles without any problem. Only one of them, this picture you can see now on the right top corner, that is the only one where the screw came off at around 30,000 cycles. So only 1 out of 9 PFN group failed, whereas in gamma nail, even just at around 15,000 and 20,000 cycles, 5 out of 9 gamma nails failed. So there is always good, and there is many more evidence like this which talks about two screws are better than one screw. But unfortunately, passing two screws, we as a surgeon find it difficult. That's why we try to use one screw system. So if you are good in doing surgery, if you are able to pass two screws beautifully, then it cannot be anything worse than one screw system. So always try to put two screws, and there is nothing which is better than a two screw system when compared to with one screw system. So always two screw is better than one screw. That's the first reason why I say that PFN is better. Second, in a basic cervical fracture like this, there is always some rotational element also, especially if the lesser trochanter is also attached to the proximal fragment. This rotational element cannot be controlled with a one screw system. It always requires two screw system. That is one of the reasons why we use a derotation screw with a DHS when we are operating a basic cervical fracture or even a transcervical fracture, or we are doing a abduction osteotomy in a young adult. So the same principle applies here also. When the neck is like this, these cases, two screws are definitely better than one screw system, which can not prevent the rotation of the head and neck. Why I don't like PFN-A2? I am not against these newer implants. They are beautiful. The system is very good, especially the imported ones available. It's a very easy surgery to do, but unfortunately, this compression mechanism has been decided by somebody else, not me as a surgeon. The system which is available in India, either you can compress about 5 millimeter or 8 millimeter, depends on the company you use. When you pass the helical blade, after unlocking the helical blade and after hammering, you have to lock it again. When you lock it, it collapses. This will achieve compression at the fracture site. But here, what is happening in this case? This patient, a good cortical bone, did not require too much of collapse. See the tip of the screw at the tip of the helical blade, which came back. I am showing the animation. Instead of the fracture getting compacted, the fixation which we had in the head itself came back. That is one of the reasons why I don't like. I don't, if I want 10 millimeter collapse for any other fracture, this system is not having 10 millimeter collapse available. Whatever the implant manufacturer has decided, that much amount only I can collapse. So achieving compression on table is not in my hands. That is the reason why I don't like this instrument. Here is a subtrochanteric fracture. You cannot hammer the helical blade without unlocking it. Why do you require a collapse happening in a collapse of the helical blade happening in a subtrochanteric fracture? I don't understand. But unless you unlock it by 5 or 7 millimeter or 8 millimeter, depending upon the company of the nail you are using, without unlocking it, you cannot pass. You cannot just unlock half a millimeter or 1 millimeter hammer, because that will spoil your screwdriver, and that will spoil the back of the helical blade also, the threads in the helical blade. So you have to unlock properly with the screwdriver which comes with the set. And in this subtrochanteric fracture, we don't require a compression at the intertrochanteric area happening, but unless you unlock these blades, you cannot hammer. That's one of the reasons why PFN A3 or the newer blades are coming, where the jig itself, they rotate inside and go inside. So this collapse mechanism is still questionable. That means, though they were that is the best implant available, why there is a system which has come in the market very recently without this? The screw itself rotates within the jig when you are hammering, and you can pass the helical blade nowadays. That is the newer system which is available. Similarly, the Trajan nail, there is an inferior screw and the superior screw. After passing the superior screw, inferior screw can be passed at 0, 10 or 15 millimeter position. If you keep at 0 position, there is no possibility of compression happening at the fracture site. If you keep at 10 millimeter or the mark 10 millimeter collapse will happen. If you keep at 15 millimeter collapse will happen. But you don't have collapse 5 millimeter, 7 millimeter, 11 millimeter happening. Means the fracture compression you cannot feel with your hand. Only the threads of one screw getting engaged into other screw only you can feel when you are tightening the screw. So I have used this system. It's not that I don't use this system. I have my own personal experience to talk about this system, and it's very difficult to know the collapse happening at the fracture site, and we don't feel the end result or the end point when you are doing a tightening of the screw, like a head screw of the PFN. That feeling you will never get in this situation. Next one is why I don't like ZNN. ZNN is also again similar to gamma nail. Once you pass the screw, the head of the screw, you can see there is no head for the screw in the back. It can go inside the lateral cortex if you are not very careful. Though it may not go through the nail, but it will not slide out easily if the screw tip is within the bone. And also, there is no only single screw spinning of the head cannot be prevented. If you lock it from the top, there are some nails which have got the locking available. You can compress the fracture and lock the screw from the top. Once you lock it, if the fracture makes for a few more millimeters of collapse, which is possible with a PFN, the screw can slide out like a DHS screw within the barrel sliding. But if you lock it, that sliding will be prevented. If you don't lock it, fracture will not be compressed as it is required. So that is the reason why I like PFN. I don't like any other system. Why I like PFN is it's a 2-screw system. Compression is as required can be given. If you require 5 millimeter, give 5 millimeter. If you require 7 millimeter, 7 millimeter. That you can feel with your hand. Tactile sensation will get. Further collapse, if the fracture begs for few more millimeters of collapse in due course of healing, again it can allow collapse to happen. The head of the screw can compensate for deficient lateral wall. You can see that these fractures, what we are talking, are unstable osteoporotic fractures where the lateral wall will be thin or precarious and they break. In such cases, if you tighten the screw against the nail itself, the nail itself acts as a lateral wall and you don't require any additional things in those cases. So when you have everything available in a PFN, why I should change to something which is newer just because they are new in the market? Definitely not. Again, the same X-ray which I shown, the immediate post-operative X-ray and the 3 months X-ray, you can see beautifully the compression has happened. The head screws which are touching the lateral cortex at immediate post-operative X-ray are still in the same position. Whatever was required, collapse has been achieved. Here again the same X-ray which I have shown. Here the lateral cortex is deficient and the medial cortex there is a void. What I have done, I have used the tip of the, I have used the head of the screw itself as the lateral wall to abut against the nail and compensated for the deficient lateral wall, and medial void I have compensated by getting an excessive valgus, and in due course of that time the fracture gets united. So these are all the things which we had to learn. Another case, a severely badly comminuted fracture. Again, the head, you can see the screw head which is touching the nail and acting, the nail is acting as a lateral wall. In due course of time, the fracture united, and there is some collapse which has happened. You can see in the 18/3/2016 X-ray, and the screws have been, the implants have been subsequently removed. So that indicates that the lateral wall, the screw head which is touching the nail initially, it has allowed slight collapse to happen in due course of time. This is possible only with this implant. Friends, the reason why we don't have PFN by other companies is only because PFN is patented. You cannot use, any other company cannot use. There are so many court cases going on, and the verdict is all till about 2025 PFN will be patented. Once the 20-year period is over, probably that is the time when all the other people will get a chance to manufacture their own PFN. Till that time, they will blame PFN to sell their own product, because the market of hip fractures and implant required for this hip fracture is very, very high, and everybody wants to have their own share in this huge market. We should always, as a surgeon, use our judgment while selecting the intramedullary nail for the hip. And as I said in the first slide, implant is just a tool to fix the fracture. It's the reduction, it's the understanding the fracture by you as a surgeon, which is very, very important. Finally, after you do a surgery, what are the predictors of successful outcome? Once you do a surgery, when you come out of the OT, you should be happy. You should say that I have done a beautiful surgery. I have done, reduction is good, the screw length is good, everything is good. And then you will be happy. Before that, I again ask you to write down this number. If you have got any query about what I am talking, you can send a SMS by WhatsApp to Dr. Ashok Sham on his WhatsApp 9833110366. So please WhatsApp him, or you can send by Facebook also. You can send that question to him. He will be asking me some of the questions which are relevant to this talk. The last part of my talk, what are the predictors of successful outcome? Since I have discussed every point in detail, I will be just enumerating some of the points which are very, very useful. The first and foremost important is proper implant from a good company. Second is good anterior reduction, good medial reduction, neutral or positive cortical support. The fifth one is central or inferior screw placement in AP, that is anteroposterior view. Central or posterior screw position in lateral view. Tip apex distance should be less than 25 millimeter. Fracture should be well compressed on table. Nail, the tip of the nail at the entry side should be slightly projecting out at the entry side. And in headless screws, like the ZNN or with a PFN2, the back side of the screw should be slightly projecting out from the lateral cortex. I will just discuss one after the other, each point in brief. A good implant from a known company is very, very important. On the left, you can see it's a copy of a PFN where the tip of the screw, the tip of the nail and the interlocking are at so near. And that is the reason why it can have problem and periprosthetic fractures like gamma nail. Whereas on the right, there is no tapering of the nail, though the interlocking screw hole is away from the tip, but there is no tapering. Friends, when we do a plating, even the screw heads, the back of the screw heads are not proper. It's all devised to fit their own screwdriver or instrumentation. Friends, when you do a plating, normally the last screw is only a small half screw is passed or unicortical screw is passed, so that stress distribution will happen and the peri-implant fracture will not happen. Similarly, when you do a nailing or a PFN, the interlocking is done away from the tip, almost about 1 to 1.5 inch away from the tip. The interlocking is done, and the tip of the nail is tapered, as you can see in the encircled part. The tip is away from the interlocking as well as the nail is tapered. This helps in easy negotiation of the nail into the medullary canal in one. Second thing is, since the interlocking is away, the stress is distributed in a wider area, so the peri-implant or the tip of the nail fracture are less, unlike in gamma nail where the screw hole was very near to the tip. So to avoid that, the screw hole has been proximally migrated. The end result in this case, you can see it's an inferior quality duplication of the PFN where the nail has bent. The reason is it's a 13 millimeter nail. Normally, the ideal implants which are available in the market are 15 millimeter or 16 millimeter proximally, and they have got a 8 millimeter hole for the cervical screw. Means there is about 4 millimeters of metal is left around the screw hole, even if you make a 8 millimeter hole in a 15 or 16 millimeter nail. Whereas in this 13 millimeter nail, if a 8 millimeter hole is made, only about 2.5 millimeter of metal is left on either side. That's why the nail bends and breaks before the fracture unites. So don't use a cheap duplication which is available at a dirt cheap rate. So always purchase an implant from a known company. Second is good anterior reduction and good medial reduction. This I don't want to stress because already I have talked in detail about this. And in this picture you can see anterior reduction as well as the medial reduction as marked by the arrows are beautiful. So I am happy when I do a surgery like this. Third is the neutral or positive cortical support. Never ever accept a varus. Always try to get a neutral or a positive cortical support. This also I have discussed, so I will not go to the details of this. So always no varus whatsoever, preferably light valgus. The next one is the position of the screw in AP should be either center or inferior. If you are using a single screw system like this is a Halifax nail where I have used, you can go for a central position, but always better to put it inferiorly. The reason is the hip is loaded from the top, the varus forces are acting. Superior cutting is more common in these fractures. So there should be more bone superiorly. That can happen only if your inferior screw is placed inferiorly. If you are already placed in the center or superiorly, there is hardly any bone superiorly to prevent the cutting through. So always try to put the screw as inferior as possible in AP. In the lateral position, either it should be center or slightly posterior. Why it should be slightly posterior? The reason is the best quality of the bone where it can have purchase. Second thing is Indian patients have a tendency to sit cross-legged. When the patient tries to sit cross-legged, there is a tendency for the screw to try to cut anteriorly or move anteriorly. The stresses are more anteriorly because of the sitting cross-leg position. So if you keep the screw more posteriorly, then there will be lot of bone anteriorly to prevent them to cut anteriorly. That is one of the reasons why I aim to get the slightly posterior position in lateral picture in all my intermediate nails. The seventh one or the next one is tip apex distance. As I said earlier, measure the tip apex distance from the subchondral bone. In this case, you can see both in AP and lateral, they are less than about 7 or 8 millimeter from the subchondral bone, and added together, they are just about 15 millimeter. It's very fine. As long as you are within 20 millimeter, it's fine. More than 25 millimeter, if they are away, then the problem arises. So measure it from the articular surface. Don't measure from the fovea centralis, which gives a wrong data saying that your TPFX distance might be large or more because of the inferior screw placement. Then well compressed fracture. Already I have talked about this. You can see a 2007 picture on the left side where the fracture was compressed, and the 2008 when the patient came after 14 months, there is screws are still touching the lateral cortex. They have not backed out. That means whatever the fracture required, that much compression I have achieved on table. That's also very, very important. In headless screws like the Halifax nail or the ZNN or even the PFN the back end of the screw should be slightly out of the cortex to allow collapse. See what happens if the back end of the screw is within, if you hammer too much inside, then the hole in the lateral cortex and the nail or the screw, back end of the neck screw will not match, and that will prevent collapse happening at the fracture site, because these nails cannot be compacted, or the fracture compression will not remain unless you lock the top screw in this implant. And some of the implants don't have a top screw also. In such cases, if you hammer the screw inside, then there will be problem. The screw should slightly back out, as you can see in this case. On the right, you can see the screw has been hammered in too much. Now, in this case, the patient will have problem. The backside of the helical blade will not come out, and this will lead to penetration within the joint. When due course of time, when the fracture collapses, though it is a subtrochanteric fracture, it's okay, but for an intertrochanteric fracture, when the fracture collapses, the tip of the screw, instead of the screw backing out from the lateral cortex, will start penetrate more inside. That's one of the reasons why problem of penetration is more common with a PFN compared to other implants. The next one is nail tip at the entry side should be projecting out slightly. This is the 10th point I am talking. Why? If the tip of the nail is within the medullary canal, then the fixation will lose. The nail can toggle. As you can see in this case, the tip of the nail is buried within the bone, and it can toggle. Further medialization has happened in a subtrochanteric fracture. So many of the nail, especially the imported ones which are available in the market, comes with a end cap. You should use proper end cap. This is a picture on the left where you can see the tip of the nail is just at the level of the entry side. To build up, I used the end cap in this case, and this now the picture on the right shows that the tip of the nail is above the entry side, at least 5 millimeters above the entry side, so that rocking of the nail will not happen. It will be snugly fixed in that point. So that's also equally important. To recapitulate all the points, a proper implant from a good company, good anterior reduction, good medial reduction, neutral or positive cortical support, central or inferior screw placement in AP, central or posterior screw placement in lateral position, tip apex distance less than 25 millimeter, ideally less than 20 millimeter, well compressed fracture after releasing the traction, nail slightly projecting out at the entry side in a headless screws, and the nail slightly projecting out at the entry side, and in headless screws, the screw slightly projecting out from the lateral cortex. These are some of the 10 points which are very, very useful to predict the outcome after you do a surgery. I thank Dr. Ashok Sham for this initiative, and I thank all of you for listening to my talk again. And if you can see my earlier 2 webinars, which are available both on Ortho TV as well as on my YouTube, you can correlate all the topics which I have talked, all relating with the PFN. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a really detailed and conceptual talk. So we have few questions, and we'll take them as people have asked on various fora. So yeah. Dr. Girish Mote has asked, how should be the entry made when GT is fractured or there is comminuted fracture? The same question is also asked by uh, Dr. Vinod Rajkumar, and Dr. Anand Chintu.
Okay. Many a time we just take because this is an intertrochanteric fracture, we shovel the nail from the fracture site, and that will cause displacement of the fracture or distraction of the fracture. These nails are about 15 or 16 millimeter thick. In which fracture we put a nail between the fracture site, so that will cause lateralization of the shaft as well as the contact with the bone becomes less. And that's why we always should fix the fracture with KY, then only we should make the entry. If the GT is fractured or if the fracture is comminuted, then what you can do is you align the neck shaft angle. If the neck shaft angle of the opposite side is 130°, then you align on this operative side to 135°, temporarily fixing that position with KY, then make an entry from the tip of the trochanteric area or even from the piriformis fossa, pass the reamer properly, and you can make an entry and pass the nail subsequently without any problem. And if the greater trochanter is a huge piece and if it is moving or if it is Howell's fragment, then only you require to fix. Because if it is a comminuted fracture, it's only bone which looks comminuted, but actually the soft tissue around that are still encapsulated. There is a periosteum muscles which are still intact, which are not fractured. So you need that to fix them. You just align it properly, neck shaft angle, the heel around the nail beautifully, as I have shown one of the case where the medial beak had gone into the distal fragment. There was so much of comminution, but in spite of that, getting the alignment right is the most important thing for me.
Right.
Yes.
Dr. John Ebnazar has joined us.
Yes.
So we welcome him. Welcome, John, sir.
Hello Ashok, how are you?
I'm fine, sir. So,
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, sir. Dr. Shivashankar is also with us.
Yeah. Hello, John.
Happy New Year, Shivashankar.
Thank you very much, John. I wish you the same.
All the best for your IO election.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we have just two more questions for Dr. Shivashankar, then we can shift to the hip topic. Just two more minutes, sir. Yeah. So Dr. Paresh Pandya has asked, sometimes when the entry point passes through the fracture site, reaming over the guide wire leads to lateralization of the shaft and a gap appears at the fracture site. What should we do in these cases?
Yeah, actually, this I discussed in detail in the first webinar, how to avoid common mistakes.
Right.
What happens is, if you insert the nail through the fracture site, that displaces the fragment laterally. So always you try to fix this fracture with K-wires, then only ream it. There should be some counter support which is required. This counter support when you're reaming can be given only by fixing the fracture with K-wires. Without fixing the fracture, if you just ream it, the shaft gets lateralized. There will not be reaming happening actually. Only few millimeters get reamed. Not a proper 15 or 16 millimeter hole will be created for the nail. Once you insert the nail, they displace the shaft laterally.
Right.
Dr. Paresh, you can see this. My webinar is still available on YouTube. You can search for Dr. Shivashankar and you can search that same webinar about how to avoid common mistakes while doing PFN. Yeah,
Right.
thank you, Ashok.
Right. Another question was, what is the entry point for subtrochanteric fractures? Is it different?
Yes. For me, whether it is subtrochanteric fracture or intertrochanteric fracture, I always try to take from the piriformis fossa. Though people say that it is medial to the tip of the trochanter, medial to so many things. When you slip medial to the tip of the trochanter, you are going to fall into the piriformis fossa and your entry becomes there only. And after all, whether you take medial to the tip of the trochanter or the piriformis fossa, the difference is only 2 or 3 millimeters. The difference. Once you ream with 15 or 16 millimeter, they get connected with both of them, so there is no harm. But what happens is, if you take the entry from the tip of the trochanter, the bone is softer on the lateral cortex, so you will tend to ream inadvertently the lateral side. If you are very careful, then you can ream more medially or equally on medial side and lateral side, and your entry will remain in line with the middle canal. Unfortunately, our bones are much more weaker on the lateral side. When we try to ream, the thick neck and the medial part of the greater trochanter prevents medial cortex reaming. So we without realizing we remit on the outer cortex, that will cause the lateralization of the entry and leading to varus. Again, this webinar also you can see more about this talk in my first webinar, that is about how to avoid complications while doing PFN.
Right. Another question was how to tackle cases with fractured lateral cortex while inserting the lag screw.
I have done only few cases of wiring or pitching with a trochanteric buttress plate. Dr. Naveen Thakkar from Ahmedabad has come out with a buttress plate which is patented even in US. Almost 160 countries he has patented that trochanteric buttress plate, but that is not available in the market as of now. But I have seen him operating cases where he has used this technique. Dr. Shishikant Ganjale from Solapur has come out with a buttress plate that is also very useful. You can put this plate over the lateral cortex, comminuted lateral cortex, and against this plate, the tip of the screw or the head of the screw will be sitting. But I find no difference by pushing the screw much more inside deeper and trying to fit against the nail itself. I have shown enough number of cases and I have done enough number of cases. Getting a good valgus is more important for me. The nail screw should not be rocking in and out. So never I keep the screw outside because the lateral cortex is broken. I don't keep the head of the screw or the back side of the screw outside. I fix it inside so that I touch the nail itself from inside, so that the problem will be while removing you have to make a hole and take it out. Otherwise, union is not at all a problem. Other option is you can put wiring that Shishul Babulkar and Sunil Kulkarni have come out with a wiring technique. They use wiring for this. I think they are all little more additional things. You can do it. If you are keen to get 100% good looking X-ray, then you can do it. But if you are only concerned about the union and function, what I am talking, push the screw inside, let the head of the screw touch the lateral part of the nail. That's more than sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more question?
Just the last question. What is your views on Navis nail? Have you heard about that?
No.
Okay. Okay. I think then we have covered most of the points. The other questions were already answered in your webinar, so I didn't ask them.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Now it is Dr. John Ebenezer.
Yeah. So you can stop sharing your PPT. So welcome, John, sir.
Thank you, Ashok.
Yeah. So we can start with your presentation if you can share it.
Yeah, I will share it.
Yeah.
I'm opening my PPT.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Very hectic, Ashok, for you.
No, sir.
Have a lot of programs.
Yeah, it's very interesting to do all this.
Yeah. You have a passion for this, which you have. Otherwise, it's very difficult to manage.
Right.
The PPT is taking time to open up.
Okay.
Yeah, like this. So today we will be covering bilateral hip disease, examination of bilateral hip pathology.
Right.
And with that, we conclude the hip examination.
Right.
Unfortunately, we cannot rewind or revise the previous slides
Yeah, we cannot.
because there are too many slides and it will take a lot of time. So we'll
Yeah.
just start off with the bilateral hip straight.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm on.
I think you have to share the slides from the share screen. Currently, we can see your screen. We can't see
New
your,
share, that is on.
yeah, we can't see your slides.
Now
Yes.
you can see.
Yes, sir. Now we can see.
Okay, right. Shall I start?
Yeah, we can go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Good evening, my dear students. I think you're all tired. It's a long day, and now you'll have to listen to the hip. You have to trouble what we call bilateral hip disease. This has been fairly interesting. Hip examination. We had 3 episodes, and it was spread out over a period of 2 weeks. We tried to have an extensive discussion of hip examination. And then this would be the last episode wherein we'll talk about the bilateral hip disease. I call this as double trouble because hip examination itself is a big headache. As if this is not enough, it's another bigger headache also. Or is it really a headache? If you can, crack this mystery, I don't think it will be a big problem. So. Clinical examination in bilateral hip disease is a big challenge. What is that we need to see in hip examination in bilateral cases? First is the gait of the patient. Then we have to examine the patient as usual in standing position, sitting position, and in supine position. And in bilateral hip diseases, the gait is waddling gait. It's the bilateral triangular gait. And they're usually seen in CDH and Coxavera. And deformities, we have sagittal plane deformities, coronal plane deformities, and combination of the two. The sagittal plane deformities are the flexion deformities. You move on Thomas well leg flexion test. Opposite leg not normal test cannot be done in the usual way. So here we need to do the well leg flexion test in the bilateral hip disease. What to do in or how to do bilateral, well leg raising test, or what to do in a bilateral hip operation. See, the patient is in prone position, the trunk is on the couch, the hip is brought to the edge, and both the knees are supported, and there is passive extension of the hip that is done. Then stop when you feel the resistance. Angle between the long axis of the trunk and thigh is the angle of fixed flexion deformity. Oh, you understood this. Now you know how to do the Thomas test, and this is in a bilateral hip flexion. You need to do a test like that. What are the alternative methods? Get the patient to be prone, get the patient to the edge of the table, extend the hip one by one till lumbar lordosis just appears. So that is the alternative method. And in supine position, you can flex both the legs till lumbar lordosis is obliterated. Then extend one hip at a time till the pelvis just starts tilting, or till the lumbar lordosis just begins to reappear. So this is another way of finding out the bilateral hip flexion deformity. But this is not the best method. The one which I told you in the beginning was the one that is This is the method which is the most accepted method to assess the bilateral hip flexion deformities. Then the causes of pelvic tilt in bilateral when we do the bilateral hip pathology, it could be suprapelvic, and the causes could be scoliosis, or pelvic causes, and the reasons could be pelvic inhabilis, or intrapelvic causes where there is abduction and adduction properties and the lower limb deformities. So these are the causes of the pelvic tilt: suprapelvic, pelvic, infrapelvic. Right. Coronal plane deformities, squaring of the pelvis, abduction, adduction deformity in bilateral cases. Pelvis is square already when both limbs are left in the deformed position. So when you leave the limb in deformed position, the pelvis is square. Then we have the bilateral abduction, adduction deformity assessment method, the Portalis method. Limbs cannot be brought parallel, therefore test cannot be done using this method. So Portalis method cannot be followed in bilateral hip disease.
So your slides are not being seen. Excuse me, sir.
Pardon?
So your slides are not seen.
Oh.
I think you have to share again.
Okay, 1 minute,
Yeah.
1 minute. Share button. Now you're able to see?
Yeah, it is loading. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you can see?
Yeah, we can see now.
Okay, fine. I think I'll get back to 2 slides.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, from here. So the squaring of the pelvis and coronal plane deformities. Pelvis is square as a told when both the limbs are left in the deformed position. And Portalis method, the alternate methods, done if limbs can be brought parallel. Perkins method, done if the limbs cannot be brought parallel. Now, here the limbs cannot be brought parallel in bilateral hip pathologies. Therefore, this test cannot be done. Bryant's triangle, not reliable for bilateral cases like Oxavera, will miss bilateral symmetrical supratrochanteric shortening. So these lines are of value in bilateral hip. That is the elegance line and the Shivashankar's line. Bryant's triangle is not of much use. Portalis method is not of much use, but elegance line and Shivashankar's line are of value in assessing the bilateral hip pathology. So the Rosen-Nelliken's line used to in bilateral cases like Oxavera, not a trustworthy guide when there is abduction or adduction deformity. And the gait in bilateral hip disease. Antalgic, patient left on both the sides. Stand space is less or more painful side. Penile gait or landing gait. You can see the bilateral lurch in bilateral landing in this bilateral disease. It knows the interesting points of landing gait, bilateral tendon gait, landing gait, duck gait, or porous verbal swing. So these are the different names given for bilateral tendon gait. So watch the shoulder here rather than the buttocks. In bilateral cases, first one shoulder, then the other dips. So that's the duck waddle. The tendon bulks high. On single leg, stance trunk tends to take the supported side and pelvis rises on the unsupported side due to action of the abductors. When this fails, the test is positive. So the errors, the patient cannot stand sufficiently long. Patient has a lower limb deformity. Patient has fixed adduction and abduction deformities of the hip. And there is a fixed pelvic obliquity. So these are the errors where the tendon sign is of limited value in bilateral hip disease. And then measurements in bilateral cases. Keep the lower extremities as nearly as possible in same position in relation to pelvis. Practically very difficult in bilateral cases. You can't do the apparent measurements. You can't do the true measurements. What you can do is the segmental measures in bilateral hip cases. Apparent measurements fall short in bilateral cases. Why? Because the limbs cannot be brought parallel. What is the solution? Measure from the trochanter, keeping all the joints in as symmetrical position as possible. So to make the apparent measurements, you have to do the measurements from the trochanter, not from the sternum or the umbilicus as we normally do. True measurements are also inconclusive in bilateral cases. Segmental measurements is the saving grace in bilateral cases. Their true measures are inconclusive. Segmental measurements are useful. Supratrochanteric, infratrochanteric, and leg components can be measured and then compare with the other side. Then corroborate with indirect evidences about shortened side. If trochanter is moved up, then that is the shorter side. So here in bilateral hip cases, it's the segmental measurements which are of more use. So at the end of the examination, you need to make a provisional diagnosis. At the end of the history taking, whether it's an acute case, subacute case, chronic case. It's obvious that in exams you don't get the acute cases, it's a chronic case only. And at the end of the examination, with all the points, you should be able to make a provisional diagnosis. Then ask for the appropriate investigations or the definitive diagnosis. Peculiarities of hip. Exclusive hip diseases like herpes and the strict capture, pneumonitis, etc. Apparently, everything seems to be okay. Beware of the compensation mechanisms here. Couch away from the wall for all-round examination and movements. And know the cases in the practical examinations what we given to you as tuberculosis of the hip, which is one of the most common cases that's kept in the examination as a long case. And then primary OA hip. Here, you have to look into all the signs and symptoms and clinical findings in primary OA hip. So you may get a case of tuberculosis or you may get a case of primary OA hip. Then old septic arthritis of the hip could be the other possible case that can be kept in the examination, and this could be a bilateral case too. So in bilateral, I have told you some of the salient points in the bilateral examination, or it could be just a unilateral case. Then bilateral avian or avian at one joint can be another long case in the examination. And non-union fracture neck of femur is very, very commonly kept. It is usually straightforward case. Don't mess it up with improper measurements or improper examination and discussion. So non-union fracture neck of femur is one of the most commonest case that is kept in the examination. The other case is the malunited trochanteric fracture. This could also be a fairly simple diagnosis, but the problem arises when the trochanter is thickened due to other reasons like cortisol or any other or bursitis or anything like that, which will confuse the diagnosis. So you have to take the history properly and look for the proper clinical examination and then come to a conclusion. This is another case, unreduced posterior dislocation of the hip. This also has got its own classical presentation. Invariably, if you examine the case correctly, you may not miss this case, but you have to look for complications like sciatic nerve palsy. Don't just be happy if you can make a diagnosis of unreduced posterior dislocation of the hip. Always look for the complications that has arisen because of this. And there is a large variety of hip cases which can be kept in the examination. This bilateral case, you can see the bilateral BDH, and you can see the slip capital femoral crisis, burnt out cases can be known to you. Pathological dislocation of the hip because of tuberculosis or septic arthritis can be the case here. Bilateral coxavera can be a case in the exams. Then suprapelvic causes, you can have the scoliosis, and because of that, the hip pathology you should be able to find out. Then OA hip is another case which will be doing bilateral osteoarthritis of the hip. Perthes disease, child with the short stature and limb, and maybe in adult also you may get a post-Perthes hip disease, can also be an examination. The unreduced dislocation of the hip, which I told you, and the diagnosis and discussions, are very important. Before arriving at a final diagnosis, you need to go back to history, go back to general examination, go back to specific examination, tie all the loose ends together, then make a provisional differential diagnosis. Then you ask for investigations to come to a conclusion as to what is the definitive diagnosis. And then comes the possible treatment options and then the rehabilitation protocol. So whether it's a unilateral case or a bilateral case, this is how you should go: history, then general examination, then specific examination, then corroborate all the findings what you have, both in the general examination and the specific examination, make a provisional or a differential diagnosis, then go with the investigations, then come to a conclusion what could be the definitive diagnosis, then discuss the treatment options, and then what could be the rehabilitation protocol. Relevant investigations help to come to a diagnosis. These are the things which you could ask for in the examination from the examiner, the lab test, the X-rays, the MRI, the CT. All this only after you complete your clinical examination. Don't be tempted to look into these reports or these films before you examine the patient, because it may prejudice you and it may mislead you, and you may err, and if you get to see some other X-rays, the X-rays are exchanged, and then you base your diagnosis on X-rays, then you may go wrong. So the best thing is you need to do the clinical examination perfectly, and then try to corroborate your clinical findings with the investigation findings. So that is the best way to come to a proper diagnosis. Then when the treatment protocol is discussed, go from non-operative to operative methods, and just don't jump into telling the surgical things. Tell about the medical management, and then the non-operative management like physiotherapies or injection therapies, and then what could be the surgical options, and what are the alternative methods available to treat a particular condition which has been given to you, and then most importantly, what could be the rehab protocols after the surgical procedures or the therapy management. So this is how you should systematically discuss the treatment method with the examiner, and don't try to just give some vague answers when the discussion starts on the treatment aspect. And then the rehabilitation protocol, you need to know, you need to learn, and you need to understand, study the rehabilitation protocol, and then explain to the examiners correctly if you are asked. So my approach for unraveling the mysterious hip, if I can put it in a nutshell, it is the positioning, draping, and exposure of the hip, which is very, very important. That is very vital, because unless you expose the hip properly, you will not be able to conduct your examination properly. And if you don't do the examination properly, then there are a lot of chances that you will miss or go wrong. Then you need to get good history. You need to have a good ears, so that you can hear to the patient and then try to understand the unspoken language or the history, and try to see what is not relevant to you and what are the points that are relevant to you, and don't blindly go by what the patient says. Keep your thinking hat on always, and try to assess the history correctly. And then if the history is not supporting your diagnosis, then you need to be careful. You need to probe the patient properly to get the relevant points what you want. General physical examination, don't ever ignore this. Don't jump to touch the hip straight away. No, you have to do a very systematic general physical examination, because that will give you vital clues, and that would give you the diagnosis ultimately. If you overlook the general physical examination, then you could miss some of the vital clues which would help you. Then systemic examination, the lung, the CVS, the brain, and the abdomen, everything has to be examined. And because there could be some points you can pick it up from the systemic involvement of the disease. Then comes your local examination, and we have discussed this extensively. There is look, feel, move, measure. So the look inspection, you need to see the gait, you need to see the limb length deformities, and limb length problems, and all those kind of things. And then you have to confirm that by palpatory methods and feel for all these deformities, and then do the palpation, move, measure, and see the movements, how much are the movements, both the sides, compare the normal side always, and see which movements are restricted, and how many movements are restricted, and then you will know what could be the pathology which is underlying. Measure. And measuring, I told you how to measure, the apparent measurement, true measurements, segmental measurements, all these things have to be systematically. Then is the time to do special tests like the general test, endoscopy test, all these things to be done after you do the local examination, the vital things. Then you need to analyze the entire thing now. The hip has to be analyzed. based on all this, the history, the physical examination, the system examination, local examination, and special test. Now put everything in an order and try to analyze what is the possible diagnosis in your case. And then formulate a probable or a probable diagnosis. Very important. Don't give a definitive diagnosis straight away, because that would create a doubt in the mind of the examiner that you are aware of the diagnosis, and that may that may be a disadvantage to you and may go against you. So always give a probable diagnosis or a differential diagnosis and a probable diagnosis, and then you can ask what would be the specific diagnosis. Then you can tell that it can be told only after the investigation reports like the X-ray, MRI, lab, and other things. Then that would help you to zero on the correct diagnosis. Then when the final diagnosis arrives, you're not very sure, always give a differential diagnosis and say that this is my first possibility, second possibility, like that. So that you are showing your analytical mind, and you are showing that you are really trying to come to a diagnosis by exclusion and by fitting in the various findings, history, etc. into its proper shape, and then come to the possible diagnosis. So say, for example, tuberculosis. Don't just say it's just tuberculosis. You could say it's a chronic kidney disease. And then if they ask, what is that chronic kidney disease? Then you can say, probably it could be infectious pathology. Then if that's what is that infectious pathology? Then you can say that it's a single joint involvement and a young adult or a middle-aged person, and in our country, it could be a possible tuberculosis. So like that, you can come to the diagnosis step by step logically, instead of saying straight away that this is a case of tuberculosis. So these are some of the tips, and I'm sure that in your clinical postings, you have learned so many tips from your teachers also as to how you should come to a conclusion and how you used to make a diagnosis. Always take pride in making the diagnosis. Don't jump into a panic mode and ask the experts who are there in and around the examination to show the X-rays or the MRI so that you can zero on the diagnosis. No, you make a sincere effort from your side and make the diagnosis based on the clinical examination, which we have discussed so far. Spend a lot of time in picking up the skill in the examination of the hip joint, and that will be a cakewalk for you in the exams, and you will not go wrong if you have learned all the steps correctly. And that is not a very difficult thing. It is quite possible. Only thing we should do it. Then comes the management protocols. Management has to be systematically discussed, as I told, from conservative management to non-operative management to operative management, and to recent advances would be asked, and the recent treatment would be asked. So you can answer to the best of your capacity. And if you're not aware of too many recent advances, it's okay, but you should know the basic treatment, the good basic management protocols. Then you also should know the rehab protocols, because the treatment is never complete without rehabilitation. So, hip is not just a hip, it teaches you life lessons. I always say this, a lot of things to learn from hip. What is the philosophy of hip which I have learned, and which I would like to share with you? See, life is mobility, and mobility is life. As long as we're going around, we are alive. And hip plays a stellar role in mobility. You cannot have a good mobile, existence if there is a problem in your hip joint. And the hip is very proactive. If there is a hip problem which knocks you out of your feet, the hip joint puts you back on your feet by various compensatory mechanisms. So that is how you get confused. If there is an active disease, but still the person is going around. Why? How? By the compensatory mechanisms. So it shows that proactiveness and how we should be in our life. We should have the knack of going around the disadvantages or problems what we have in life by trying to learn from the hip joint, which tries to seek the help of the spine, the other things, and try to keep the patient on the feet. So the proactiveness of the hip, which is very important, and that is what I've learned from the hip examination of the hip discussions. And I feel that hip's leadership roles. What do you mean by that? It assumes responsibility for what has happened. It conceals all kinds of mistakes, I mean deformities, and bends in any direction. There is no ego to put you on your feet. So compensates. So that's what I feel. The leadership, how a leader should be. A leader should assume responsibility, conceal the mistakes of his or her followers, and you should not have no ego. And the only goal is to see that the issue is resolved. So this we can learn from the hip joint. The hip takes responsibility of its problem, conceals the mistakes done, and then it has no ego, and it will try to put the victim on the feet by somehow compensating from what has happened. So this is how a leader should be, and if is a true leader. And then it seeks the help of its friends who are too keen to help any trouble. So the hip joint, when it is deceived, it seeks the help of the neighboring joints or neighboring structures like spine, like his feet. And then the goal is to see that the patient, though the patient has got hip disease, it is not affecting his day-to-day life, and he is able to stand, walk, and do the things the best of his capacity. So that is how the hip, which is incapacitated, seeks the help of neighboring structures to be mobile. So it's just a tough nut to crack. It may be down, but remains not out. So hip is I have learned the philosophy of hip, what I call, and that I incorporate that into my life, and hopefully you agree with me that we need to have this kind of character to come up in life. So the inseparable friends, what I call the hip, pelvis, and spine. You have grown up on the friendship of Veer and Jay, ready to die for each other. And you also know about this, अनहोनी को होनी करते होने को अनहोनी, और हम वो आए जो दो और को पांच बना दे. That's what hip joint does. It keeps you always up and about, and with the help of its friends, it serves you to the best of its capacity. So I call hip joint is a great joint. What it teaches us is to respect our job, our responsibilities, over responsibility for your actions. Do not blame, be proactive, be egoless, have great friends, keep down, do not give up, persevere, and get along with life, whatever the situation. So this is what I learned from the hip joint, and it's a great philosopher, and it's a great philosophical angle which I look into. So this is our hip joint in all exploring, and this is how it's a sight to behold. You can see what all we can do with the hip joints. But unfortunately, we don't get these kind of hip joints in examination. We get diseased hip joint. And the diseased hip joint is a tough nut to crack. If you can crack, it's your MS or a DOCO or your DNB. If that's your gift, what you get if you can crack the hip joint. Hope you have now understood the hip examination. You can go through all the lectures, all the 4 lectures at a time. Then probably you'll have the continuity, because we have been doing this in episodes, and it is quite possible that there is break, and you may not understand when we start suddenly stopping at one particular level. So it will be great if you can. Ashok would have uploaded this all talks on the website. So what you can do is right from the first slide to the last slide. You can run through. Then probably you'll be able to understand the entire examination of it. And we have covered it exhaustively. Let us be thankful to Ashok for allowing us to do so. 4 episodes he has given us, and I have tried to cover the hip examination to the best of my capacity, and hope students will find it very useful. You can find this in my book, in the clinical examination, and then this is the book for undergraduate students, and this is the book for postgraduate students. In this, the hip disease, the hip joint, the hip examination, everything has been dealt great detail. And in this book, is worth possessing. Here I discussed about the diseases, the long cases and the short cases, long case of the hip, all the cases which I showed you, the AVN, the tuberculosis, or the septic arthritis, or the osteoarthritis, or Purkin's disease. All these cases have been dealt extensively in this book. Here make diagnosis and practical orthopedics books. So again, is my conclusion for this entire hip series, and I thank Ashok for this initiative and for his patience with us, and for being flexible and accommodating my request to see that the hip examination is given clearly its due. I would have finished this in 30 minutes or 40 minutes too, but I didn't want to do that, and I'm grateful to Ashok for that. I think with this we conclude with the hip series, and then maybe next time we will be talking on knee examination, and the other clinical examinations can be taken step by step. Over to Ashok.
Thank you very much, sir. I think we have more than 4 hours in which we have covered the hip examination.
Yes.
And it is very, very detailed, and anybody who watches the entire content will never forget the hip examination and will not go wrong. And he will have answers to all the exam questions that are asked by the examiner. So
thank you. And if there are questions, they can always mail it to me or send it to me, or put it on a WhatsApp group so that I can answer them to the best of my capacity.
Right, sir. Right. So
thank
you very much, sir. Thank you very much for.
Thank you, Ashok.
And we'll schedule the knee examination very soon.
Yes, we'll do that. We'll do that. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, sir.